Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday morning to all. It's the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast, and I am your host, Richie. On today's show, I'm going to be hitting on the Yankees' final stretch run here, trying to finish off the Baltimore Orioles after a very impressive 5-1 West Coast roadie as they close in on the American League East title. It is exciting. They're starting to finally play better at home before they hit the road. They were finally able to distance themselves from the Baltimore Orioles, and now they have a 4-game set to really establish the very beginning called the second season, which is October. You know, the Orioles are going to be playoff bound as well, but this is a big series for both teams, not just for divisional value, but for the morale going into the postseason, because anyone who's been watching the playoffs the last couple of years in MLB knows that winning your division means nothing. You can win a world championship being a wild card. It has happened quite frequently the last few years. So definitely going to be hitting on that on the show. And we're going to be doing a rundown on the National Football League, some of the things we saw yesterday, a decent amount of teams finally getting their first dub. And speaking of first dubs, shouts out to my very patient and devoted New York Giants fans. We have had a frustrating run over the previous 20 or so games, but yesterday was a feel-good win in the dog pound. Cleveland Browns getting beat. Shane Bowen calling a really good defensive game. The Giants had 8 team sacks on Deshaun Watson and just really got his body clock all out of whack, where he was missing receivers. Amari Cooper, still one of the best in the game, had his way at certain junctures with Deonte Banks. And even when Banks had him covered, you know, Cooper was finding ways to make plays, and that was a key value, along with a Singletary fumble, which kept the Browns in the game. Giants, you know, they had a big lead, and naturally you're going to play a little more conservative with a bigger lead. And I think it was a little frustrating when Bowen kind of came away from the blitzes, but the Giants did enough to get the win. Daniel Jones, tale of two halves. He was awesome in the first half. Second half, once again, to the conservative nature of trying to nurse a lead, Devin Singletary just showing a great football acumen, really unselfish play to not get the touchdown that would have put the Giants up by 12, and then obviously, you know, the choice to go for 2, which I think they would have. Because by just going down and not hitting pay dirt, he allowed the Giants to run out the clock. It's a short turnaround. The Giants have to play the Dallas Cowboys this Thursday. Before I move it along, got to give a big shout out to the kid Malik Neighbors. He is so good in and out of his routes, being able to break off routes, get to the sidelines, and just kind of have that second gear. It is very hard when you're in your cut to come off a route and still make plays at the ratio that he's been making. And when you have a weapon like that, it makes life a lot easier for whoever the quarterback is, in this case, the embattled Daniel Jones, who I do want to mention is coming off of 2 decent games. I'm frustrated because I believe the Giants should be 2-1, but I'm happy that they are in the win column in a very tight NFC East to start the season. Malik Neighbors definitely making a case early on that he could be the offensive rookie of the year. I'm sure Rome Odunze, who is starting to get some traction with his quarterback, Caleb Williams, as well as Marvin Harrison Jr., should have something to say about that. But the Giants and the Cowboys are going to be a big battle on Thursday Night Football. As the Cowboys go, too little, too late. They did have a chance to get the ball late in the game to potentially tie or win, but Lamar Jackson, just a beautiful play fake, calling his own number to get the first down. That was the ultimate backbreaker. The Ravens desperately needed that victory. And I know a lot of Cowboys fans are frustrated after the good start, 1-0. They too beat Cleveland and then go home and lose 2 consecutive home games. It's a little alarming, but I'll put it to you like this. The Cowboys have had the Giants number, especially with Dak Prescott from 2017 and on. We have not defeated the Cowboys with Dak Prescott since the 2016 season when we swept the Cowboys. The Cowboys ultimately won the division that year, and the Giants were a strong wild card. And when I look at the Cowboys roster, I can't say this is about talent. I think this is about coaching, and I think this is about performance. But I will say this, with Bill Belichick sitting this year out and waiting for the next call to come through, it might very well come to fruition that Bill Belichick does indeed go to the Dallas Cowboys, similar to what his teacher, Bill Parcells, did in his final coaching stint. For Parcells, that was coaching stint number 4. For Belichick, I'm talking about in the NFL, for Belichick, that would be coaching stint number 3, previously Cleveland and New England. I do think that Bill Belichick, with the right offensive coordinator, could potentially get this Cowboys team over the hump because they are a ready-made team in terms of talent. But there is definitely something between the ears on the bigger scale between players and coaches going on there. And, you beg to question, is it time for Jerry to sell the team? I have a hard time believing he ever would, because from a pride standpoint, he is comparable to the late, great George Steinbrenner, who ran the Yankees from the 17s into the 2000s, the 70s into the 2000s. So it will be interesting to see how that shakes out. But the Cowboys should come in angry. I expect that. And the Giants are going to be catching a pissed off team. So I do believe that it's going to be a war. Keys to victory, if I had to name a few for each team, pressure on the quarterback, both sides. Giants' offensive line held up rather well. And Daniel Jones' stat lines, if you really look at it after that disaster in week 1, have not been that bad. And we shall see, Keeping it in the East, keys to victory, one other one. Neighbors versus that entire Dallas secondary. It's going to be exciting to see if Malik Neighbors could get the same separation and have that same kind of game. Devin Singletary has to take better care of the football. CeeDee Lamb is a phenomenal athlete, phenomenal player, phenomenal route runner. I truly expect him to be on his game for the G-Men. No prediction yet, but I will be thrilled if we win 2 games in the same week. Moving it along in the East to the Philadelphia Eagles, former Giant Saquon Barkley really put his stamp on yesterday's game with that breakaway run that ultimately boded to be the difference. It was good to see Dallas Goedert, for his fantasy owners, finally having an impactful game after being an afterthought going back to last season, and now even more so when you add the new weapon with Barkley, but take into consideration A.J. Brown is still nursing an injury. The Eagles 2-1, and they beat a very strong Saints team in the early going. Saints were riding very high, and, this was a defensive struggle. The Saints could walk away from this and look at the film and say that they have to make some adjustments. But the Saints can't get too down on themselves, and the Saints catch a break because the Denver Broncos defeated a very flat Tampa Bay Buccaneer team, getting their first victory. I would have to say that the 2 biggest shocks yesterday, undeniably, is Denver going into Tampa and getting a win, and the Vegas Raiders in their home opener just putting up a dud against Carolina, by many metrics, the worst team in the NFL going into week 3. Andy Dalton replaced the embattled Bryce Young, and Antonio Pierce was none happy. He let the media know that he felt that some of his players were in business for themselves without specifically naming players, which I think is very mature of him. He's a former player. He's a former middle linebacker. He's a former Super Bowl champ, and he comes from an era where you don't take plays off. That is against everything that Antonio Pierce is, and he flat out said, we're going to start making some business decisions. So I do think that he has lost some respect for some of his players. And we'll see how it plays out after having such a feel-good victory over that talented Ravens team to turn around and have this happen. Just not a good look. Not a good look at all. Other happenings around the NFL, I call it the banged up bowl because everybody was missing in the Rams and the 49er game. The Rams get their first win. I was a little shocked. I thought the 49ers, despite the injuries, were going to be able to win that game, and they blew a considerable lead. The defending NFC champions are on a 2-game losing streak. And the 49ers are usually good for a mini slump almost every season. And I don't necessarily think anybody in the West is going to be running away. You have Arizona, who's 1-2. You have the Rams, who are 1-2. You have the 49ers, who are 1-2. But I certainly don't think anybody penciled in Seattle to be 3-0. The question is can Seattle take full advantage of the injuries to the more talented rosters that are happening right now? Because from a talent-based standpoint, you can make an argument that the Seattle Seahawks are actually the worst team roster-wise, roster talent-wise, in that West division. They basically had a cakewalk against a hapless Miami Dolphins offense, missing their left-handed quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa. We don't know what the future holds for him yet. He is taking an extended IR stint because of the most recent concussion. And the Dolphins offense just looks like a shell of itself when he is not under center. 24-3 they got beat yesterday, I believe. Just completely inadequate on offense. And the Dolphins, that's what they're going to look like, unfortunately. There's going to be a lot of Sundays that look like that until they get their quarterback back. If the quarterback play continues to get porous, I do wonder and question if a couple of teams around the NFL would be considering to make a trade to send someone over that they can use as a Band-Aid until Tua gets back, if he even comes back. And a couple of names that draw my interest in just thinking about what would make semi-sense. The Giants are paying Drew Lock a lot of money, and when you have possibly a viable backup, if not a spot starter in Tommy DeVito. Would the Giants consider trading Drew Lock to a team like the Dolphins to come off of some of that money they gave him? What about Joe Flacco last year, who had a sensational get off the couch and just ball out month and a half, leading the Browns to the playoffs last year? Is that possibly a destination? He's backing up AR-15 in Indy, but with AR-15's injury history, I imagine that Flacco stays in Indy for now. But definitely something to think about. I'm not quite sure where that's going to go, but it's not sustainable to have Skylar Thompson continue to march out there. The only redeemable thing is that if the Dolphins have the very unexpected 3-4 win season, they have such a talented roster that they could hit some home runs in the draft and be right back next year. As we keep it in that division in the East, taking it back to Thursday, the New York Jets, really a dominant win, and in Aaron Rodgers' short sample size, his best performance as the Jets quarterback. It was good to see him and the young man, Garrett Wilson, really doing their thing together. It's going to be imperative that those two keep them juju running in the right direction if the Jets are going to be challenging for the AFC East and more. The defense was just outstanding. The New England Patriots running game was stymied. Antonio Gibson did a little better than Ramondre Stevenson, but the bottom line is they were inept on offense after having two respectable showings. Pats are 1-2, Jets are 2-1, Dolphins are 1-2, and the team playing tonight against the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's a home game for the Bills, part of a 2-game special for Monday Night Football. The Buffalo Bills will be taking on the Jaguars, and I do think the Bills will take care of business tonight. I think they're going to get the W, but I expect Jacksonville to play better. This is a team that Jacksonville historically has given fits to. Some of Josh Allen's worst career games have happened against this Jaguar team, but the Jaguars haven't given me a real reason to truly believe in them. I think their defense is good enough, but their offense just cannot get out of their own way lately. Buffalo with the new look approach, run first, high efficiency offense. Josh Allen isn't chucking the ball all over the place anymore, but could still involve all of his offensive weapons. And Khalil Shakir is quietly becoming one of the best slot men in the NFL. I got the Bills winning that. Other Monday night game, Cincinnati Bengals, who are coming off of 2 tough losses to start the year, looking to get their first dub. And I think Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and the recent finally reactivated, I should say, T. Higgins, I think are going to put up quite the show against a very porous Commanders secondary. New York Football Giants put up 3 touchdowns against them just last week, so I have a feeling that the Bengals could do better than that. I expect Joe Burrow to make his fantasy owners happy. And in one of my leagues, a league that I've already sewed up, I'm going to average about 200 or close. I have Higgins, Chase, and both going, so that's going to be interesting. See how that plays out. And I got Josh Allen, so I got a busy day on the Monday night spectrum. Other happenings around the NFL, things that I'm looking for, things that I'm not happy about. Here's one. The officiating still sucks. Raheem Morris, head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, played it good, but I must admit that was very bad, the call that they did not call in the end zone. It should have been a pass interference. Kyle Pitts getting interfered with. He had to literally go around the defender who had his back to the ball, to the thrower. They still had an opportunity to win. Bijan got stonewalled trying to score. Raheem Mostert flat out said, it is what it is. I'm not going to insult the officials because I like my money. And I get it. Not to mention that down the road, maybe you catch a break that you didn't catch. It's sour. It definitely kind of sucks because you never want to feel like you're getting the short hairs on anything. But the Kansas City Chiefs, despite the fact that it does seem like they sure do get a lot of calls, they also have a great team. And Steve Spagnuolo's defense is an elitely coached unit. Patrick Mahomes always finds a way no matter what he's playing with. And, they are going for a three-peat, and they are on fire. Going back to last season's stretch run, the playoffs, and now the beginning of the new season, keeping the undefeated record. Arizona Cardinals, a respectable showing. I hope Trey McBride is all right, not just for fantasy purposes, but because he's a young, dynamic player that you want to see out there every Sunday. I'm curious, very curious to see if he'll be all right. The Detroit Lions definitely got tested yesterday, but every time it seemed like Jared Goff had to pull a rabbit out of a hat and get that important first down. It's exactly what he did. And the Lions are right now a 2-1 team and feeling pretty good about themselves, and a team that should feel really good about themselves. The Green Bay Packers with Malik Willis defeating the team that drafted him, the Tennessee Titans, and Green Bay's defense was just everywhere and anywhere you would want them to be. They are one of the truly great units in the early going of the season. After cleaning up a few mistakes that they made in that Eagles game defensively, they have been sensational the last 2 weeks against Indy and against Tennessee. And, of course, this is without their starting quarterback, Jordan Love, who hopefully will be back in a couple of weeks. But the Packers are undefeated without Love, and that is a sign of a really strong roster, a really well-coached team, and a team that believes in themselves. But undeniably, the story of the young season, in my estimation, has to be the Minnesota Vikings. This is a team that when the schedule came out with the low expectations for the Giants coming in, a lot of people were just assuming that this Viking team was going to be pure shit. J.J. McCarthy got injured before the season. He's out for the year. Insert Sam Darnold. Jordan Addison was banged up coming into the year. A lot of people were like, don't draft Jetta. He's not going to be able to produce with Sam Darnold in there or even with McCarthy in there. Both viewed as fantasy downgrades from what Kirk Cousins was for so many years for them. The tragic death of Kyrie Jackson, they responsibly replaced that position by handsomely signing veteran cornerback Stephon Gilmore. They have an awesome young edge rusher via the draft. I love what this roster looks like. Aaron Jones, who has a chip on his shoulder. He kind of got shunned by Green Bay after his stellar playoff run last year. He's their main running back right now. They're playing team ball. They're playing smart ball, and they beat the ever-living crap out of the Houston Texans yesterday. I expected a much better showing from the Texans. They got a lot to prove still, and that's why that AFC South is so wide open. But right now, the Minnesota Vikings, truly, truly one of the best teams in the NFL, and they're exceeding most expectations of not only this panel, but of most people that cover the NFL all over the country. Chicago Bears, good to see Rome Odunze having that first signature game. I'm aggravated with myself in one of my leagues that I sat him, but the Chicago Bears need that fluidity. You're missing Keenan Allen. This is a young quarterback in Caleb Williams that is going to learn and sometimes take a step back and a step forward. It's part of being a rookie in a very competitive NFL. Panic watch early on. Miami Dolphins goes without saying. I think it would be horrendous if Mike McDaniel paid the price for just bad injuries. Mostert's banged up. Tagovailoa's banged up. They got injuries all over the place. I think Mike McDaniel is safe for now. I know that after 2 weeks, Brian Dable was definitely hearing some chatter about the hot seat. I think he called a pretty good game offensively yesterday. And Shane Bowen won against the grain in his regard, so I do believe that he's safe. The Panthers won. I can't believe that happened. I already alluded to that. Pittsburgh Steelers, undefeated out of the gates. Chris Dixon, where you at, bro? I told you that the Steelers are good. Steelers defense is among the league's best, and they just continue to do their thing and quietly just win football games. Mike Tomlin is a phenomenal coach. They are still a work in progress on the offensive side of the football, but when you play defense at that frequency, at that metric, they're going to be winning a lot of games this year. My preseason pick in that division was the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm still going to stand on it for now because what I saw yesterday from the Browns was a team that lost their identity, and the New York Giants grabbed their heart and ripped it right out. Pittsburgh Steelers, as I alluded to, they just keep playing stellar defense, winning a game against the Los Angeles Chargers, who catch their first loss. I really hope Justin Herbert bounces back from the most recent injury. I'm going to monitor that, see how it goes. But Chargers have some hope. They're playing better football. Week 3 is a weird week because you got a lot of 2-0s going against a lot of 0-2s, and that's where you see a lot of desperation early in the year. But with the 17th game added to the NFL schedule, I don't view an 0-3 start as a death nail as it would be in previous years in the NFL. Plus, you get the more playoff teams in addition to the extra week. Moving it along to baseball before we get out of here. A lot of excitement in New York City baseball right now. The New York Mets are in a decent position to qualify for the playoffs, and I do think that they have more confidence against a team like Philly, who is going to win that division, than they did, say, maybe a month ago. New York Mets pitching has been stellar, truly stellar, pretty much for the entire summer going into the month of September, and pitching wins in October. So the Mets, do not sleep on those guys. This is coming from a devout Yankee fan. As my New York Yankees go big 4-game set against the Baltimore Orioles, I believe that the Yankees just have to square with them. You don't have to sweep these guys. Win 2 out of 4, keep that healthy lead, and finish strong as many teams are coming up on the last week and a half or so of the season. I expect the Yankees to, at minimum, win 2 of these games. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but it's one game at a time. Keep doing what you're doing, Yankees. Things are finding a way to work out, and it's a blessing that Luke Weaver has taken over the 9th inning duties. The embattled Clay Holmes just had to be moved to a different place, but the Yankees are believing in each other. They're playing good baseball. And my God, what a treat it is to see Aaron Judge and Juan Soto play baseball in the year 2024, as well as Shohei Ohtani. I think sometimes we take these guys for granted of just how truly talented they really are. But, Ohtani becoming the first 50-50 man this year. Aaron Judge just consistently with his home run metrics. And when you think about some of the greatest sluggers that have ever put on a Yankee uniform, Aaron Judge just continues to climb the list. Of course, Aaron Judge is not going to hit his 62 mark this year because of, I think it was that 17 or 18 game homerless slump. However, more importantly, the Yankees are winning. And I would say Judge has an outside shot to get to the high 50s. I don't think he's cracking 60 or obviously re-breaking or tying his American League record of 62. But New York Yankees right now, Garrett Cole coming off a stellar performance. Carlos Rodon needs to be consistent. You got a lot of energy and a lot of excitement around Luis Gil. And, in the playoffs, it's usually that fourth starter. So it's going to be interesting to see which way the Yankees go. Clark Schmidt's been looking good lately. I have a feeling that they may lean towards him. Stroh, kind of a mixed bag, but it's going to be interesting to see. And it's all hands on deck when it comes to the playoffs, especially in those short series. But the New York Yankees have as good a chance as anyone to win the World Series. I'm not going to give my predictions yet because we're going to be doing a detailed MLB playoff show. But, Aaron Judge, American League MVP, damn near for sure. Shohei Ohtani, even more for sure in the National League. And shouts out to a couple of other guys that have been really awesome. One in particular in the American League that I have to give praise and much credit to. Bobby Witt Jr., probably going to finish second in MVP voting. He has been truly sensational. And Juan Soto also in the mix to possibly finish second or third. They're both well-deserving. New York Yankees, do what you got to do. You got to pay Juan Soto. Announcements to come for our next show, probably Wednesday. We're going to give you at least half of the Week 4 NFL preview. Doubleheader tonight, Monday Night Football. That's going to be rather enjoyable, and I look forward to relaxing tonight and catching up on some more of these games. Closing thought for the day. It is well documented that I have supported Daniel Jones for better or for worse for the better part of 5, now going on the 6th season. And some of it has not been defensible with some of his poor play. But one thing that I truly find funny about certain people in my fan base, it's not about if you like the guy, it's not about if we need to move on, because I too have backed off of some of my feelings and said, yes, maybe the Giants do indeed need to move on. But what I do know is after being ruthlessly booed and ruthlessly heckled going into his vehicle after a Week 1 terrible performance, Daniel Jones has responded with 6 touchdowns. And the interceptions are under control. The turnovers have been under control. And while I'm not going to try to sell that he's like the second coming of a Fran Tarkenton or Eli Manning or even a Phil Simms that played the position at a very high level for this wonderful organization, one thing I will say is that he's doing what he has to do to win. And I see the way that he was engaging with his linemen. Giants line has improved much. The point I'm making, guys, I said it after the Washington loss, because I didn't pin that loss on Jones, and I'm going to say it after yesterday. Why are there so many crickets when Daniel Jones plays well? What hurts me about people in my fan base is that they would rather be right than for the team that they supposedly love to be successful. That is something that I will never understand about certain people. It's not about if you like Jones, if you hate Jones. There's plenty of reasons for people to not like Daniel Jones. But at the end of the day, he is the quarterback of my favorite football team. And until that is no longer the case, whether it's Tommy Cutlets, whether it's Drew Lock, or whether it's somebody that we don't know who's on the roster yet, I will always support whoever is under center for my beloved New York Giants. So be a fan, guys. But enough with this toxicity. Everybody's always looking for something to blame when we lose. Then when you play well, I don't even see half the positivity as the negativity. We just beat a really good defense in Cleveland in a really difficult place to win a football game. Feel good, Giant fans. You have a chance to be 2-2 and get a division win against a stumbling Cowboys team right now who's having their own confidence issues. Until next time, I am Richie. I appreciate you taking a small part of your Monday and hanging with me. Make good decisions today and have a great, profitable Monday and hopefully an even better week. Take care, everybody. And as always, thank you for all the support. I do this for y'all. Peace.